Hi once again. In our previous video we spoke about the invisible chains. This one we're going to show you how to break those invisible chains or how to set yourself free from the systems. Okay, we learned in the first video that the Pope holds everything in trust. Therefore we must understand the nature of a trust, and not many know how a trust works or what the parts to a trust are. So let's have a look. The settlor, the trustee, and the beneficiary are parts of the trust. So now let's look at those. Let's look at those steps and see which one does what. So that the person who creates the trust is called the settlor. The person who holds the property for another's benefit is the trustee, and the person who is benefiting by the trust is the beneficiary, or the sedicate trust. Okay, which is a word that we learnt in the last video. The property that comprises the trust, or the property that is in the trust, is called the res. It can also be called corpus, principal, or subject matter. For example, a parent signs over certain stock to a bank to manage for a child, with instructions to give the dividend checks to him each year until he becomes 21 years of age, at which time he is to receive all the stock. Okay, now let's look at the trust relationship, and we'll go into more detail about what the trust relationships are. Now, the res is what is held in trust. Now, what a trust is anyone who is entrusted with a trust or has set up a trust does not have to disclose anything in that trust. They do not, well, they have a trust relationship, or they're trusted not to give away any information at that trust. The only thing we can do is show fraud or show that we are the beneficial owner, and then they must pay out. Okay, the settlor, the person who creates the trust, or the trust on our behalf, is the government in this case. So the government set up a trust on our behalf. The trustee who looks after our trust is the public trust. The beneficiary is us. And the res, now I don't know whether many of you know, but if you look through the acts you will see that at birth we had a life insurance policy taken out on our life. And each year we are supposed to get the annuities from that from the life insurance policy, and also the rents and anything else that is accrued in that trust. But as we haven't been claiming it, it goes into the Commonwealth or to the general account as unclaimed money. So it's about time we started doing something about it. So the settlor who created the trust gave us a receipt for the trust. Our birth certificate is that receipt. Now that's the number that you need to know when you're going back to settle your trust, or to whatever action you're going to do, which by the end of this video you should have it quite clear. So that is the receipt number for the settlor. That's the number they gave us and said, we are holding property on your behalf, please come and claim it. Okay, so I'll give you all the clues how to go and claim it now. Okay, the beneficiary or beneficial owner is identified by the printout here in New Zealand. In Australia it's the extract, England I believe it's the extract, and in America and Canada it's certificate of live birth or something like that. Okay, the res accrues from the time we are born and comes from the life insurance policy that was taken out on our behalf. Rent and the annuities that are payable every year once we identify ourselves and claim our inheritance. Believe me, people have done this. We're just a bit slow. Okay, now let's go through the steps that you will need to know to identify the beneficial owner. Now the birth certificate, as I told you previously, is the receipt. This is the warehouse keeper's receipt that he is holding property on our behalf. The printout, on the other hand, identifies the live-born child. Okay, you must know the difference between born and birthed. Okay, we're born, But when we get birthed, B-E-R-T-H-E-D, into the system, we get a receipt for that. So identifying the difference between born and birth is one of the keys to it. Now, the first step in identifying the beneficial owner is to obtain our birth certificate and printout. We need both of these. So here in New Zealand, we will go to the Department of Internal Affairs. There's the website there in blue. So just at any stage, pause this recording and write the things down. But this is what the website looks like, the Department of Internal Affairs website. Okay, so you go on there and you'll see on the top line, forms to download. So that's where you download the forms. This is what the form actually looks like. So once you download this form, here's where you order your birth certificate there. Right there, you put your quantity in there, and here's where you order your printout. So you must get these two documents if you are going to identify the beneficial owner. If you can't identify the beneficial owner, then you're not going to be able to claim your estate back. Now, what they'll try and do is they'll try and send you emails. So do not put an email address, do not order it online. Send a check in or a Visa debit on it, post it in, and get the birth certificate and the printout posted out to you on security paper. It's most important that it's on security paper. Okay, now we've already seen one side is the fiction and on the other side is the fact. So the left-hand side is the fiction, the right-hand side is fact. We now need an affidavit showing the relationship of the live-born child, and the printout and the receipt for our property will identify that relationship. Let's just go a little bit further into what the birth certificate is. The birth certificate is the estate. The legal title stems from the birth certificate. On this side, they always ask for a name and a birth date, but only hold legal title to a certificate, not a name. They hold legal title to a certificate. So get that clear. But then you'll find that it's only you that they ever contract. The birth certificate was issued by the government and is issued with a name. And if we use this name, we are obligated to them. The birth certificate is their intellectual property, and if we use it, we pay the price. And we keep doing it, but yet on the bottom of the birth certificate, it says you're not allowed to use it as a means of identification. So stop using it and start going to the printout. Now, nobody owns the name, but if we accept responsibilities for it, then we hold liability for it and we must pay. This is government-issued ID and is the will of and intent of the legislator to be recognised through the name. Their recognition. Read that through again. This is so important. It is the intent of the legislator to be recognised through the name. We have to recognise them through the name. That's why they must not use your father's name in vain. This side, this is the living side, we must correct the record. To correct the record, we can do an adverse claim on the birth certificate. We can surrender the birth certificate. We can have a collections done on the birth certificate. We can send it to the IRD and create a trust to work in the private. It's up to you what you do on this side. We also have the right to return their documents and tell them to get lost. Whichever one you do, let's go back here again. We also have the right to return their documents and tell them to get lost. We have the right to the security of the person or the legal entity. We do have the right to that security. Or as the Bible says, do not take their father's name in vain. An affidavit stands as the truth in law, and an unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment in law. Apart from the documents which show how the trust was formed, the key to proving our true identity is the thumbprint. Now, if you've watched the latest movie out, the Total Recall movie, you'll see the guy, they're giving all the clues away big time now. He goes, the bank manager takes him down the hall and he puts his thumb on the pad. The door opens and he goes into the private, or he accesses his trust account. Your thumbprint is the key. So once you've done your affidavit, you must thumbprint all your documents. Now, we know for a fact that Treasury holds the wealth of the nation, but that's not where it's at. Inland Revenue is the collection agency for the Treasury and is where we obtain our remedy. Every year they want us to do a return to correct the books, and unfortunately the way the accountants have taught us is the wrong way. So if we do it the right way, the Inland Revenue returns the money to us. Bit tricky, but that's how it works. And if you realise that the form that your mother and father filled out to get us into the system, you'll realise that a form will get us out of this system or will give us remedy, whichever you want. Okay, so if we're going to the Inland Revenue, this is, you've all got different names for it around the world, but in New Zealand it's called the Inland Revenue. I think in the America it's the IRS, and all over the world it's quite different. But on our website, this is where it is. The forms are down there. To find the forms we need to go to Inland Revenue website and scroll down to forms, which is on the right hand side. Now, the forms that you'll be looking for will have headings like beneficiary, identity, or trusts. Anything where you have to identify the beneficiary, identify yourself, or trusts, you will need to be looking at those forms. I can't give you that because the forms all around the world are different. So don't bother ringing me, asking me. You have to do your own study on this. Look for the forms, they're there. I have identified them, but you need to go in and identify them yourselves, because if you can't find the forms, you won't even know how to fill them out, and you will need to fill them out correctly. Okay, so in summary, the trust relationship is the key. We must identify the parties to the trust. Now, I've shown you the parties to the trust at the beginning of this, so you know. We must identify ourselves with the documents and our thumbprint. We need an affidavit to support our position. We need to correctly fill out the Inland Revenue form or the IRS form or whatever your one is. And we then must issue instructions to the Inland Revenue or whatever equivalent yours is on what you want done with your trust account.